My name's Daniel, I'm 32, and if you ask me what it feels like to be invisible in your own family, I could write a book. I've always been the reliable cousin, the one who shows up on time, dresses neatly, and never makes a scene. But reliability doesn't get you spotlighted, it just makes you easy to take for granted. Growing up, my cousin Ryan was the golden boy. He was loud, reckless, and somehow always forgiven no matter what he did. Crashed his dad's car? Boys will be boys. Failed out of college? He just needs time to figure things out. But when I got straight A's and landed my first job right after graduation, the response was a lukewarm, "That's nice." It didn't sting at first. I told myself it didn't matter. But over the years, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Ryan could do no wrong, and I could do no right. Still, I kept showing up. Family barbecues, birthdays, holidays, I was always there with a gift in hand and a smile plastered on my face. I guess part of me hoped that one day they'd finally notice that I wasn't just background decoration. That hope kept me going, right up until Ryan's wedding. When the invitation arrived, I thought, maybe this time will be different. It was a big deal, the whole extended family was invited, plus friends, colleagues, even distant relatives I hadn't seen since childhood. I bought a new navy suit, polished my shoes, and spent extra on a nice gift from their registry, a crystal decanter set engraved with their initials. I wanted to show I cared, even if I wasn't expecting much in return. The venue was stunning, an elegant country club with manicured lawns, fairy lights strung across the courtyard, and a white tent set up for the reception. Guests were arriving in sleek cars, women in evening gowns, men in tuxedos. I felt nervous, but proud. I belonged here. At least, I thought I did. I checked in at the front desk, gave my name, and the hostess handed me a little card with my table number written on it. Only when I reached the reception area did I realize something was off. The main hall was filled with round tables draped in white linen, each decorated with roses and candles. Laughter and music spilled across the room. But when I looked at my card again, I noticed a small handwritten note under my name, patio seating. Confused, I walked toward the back doors, thinking maybe it was an overflow section. But when I stepped outside, my stomach dropped. There was a folding chair set up on the patio, right next to the row of metal trash bins. No table. No centerpiece. Just a lonely seat by the smell of stale food and cigarette butts. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. I actually laughed out loud, expecting someone to jump out and say, "Gotcha!" But no one did. I stood there holding the gift bag in one hand, my suit jacket tightening around my shoulders as the reality sank in. They had really put me by the trash cans. I went back inside, weaving through the tables until I found my parents and asked quietly, "Hey, I think they messed up my seating. My card says patio." My mom looked at me with that tight smile she always used when she didn't want to deal with conflict. "Oh honey, they said the tables inside were for close family only. But you've still got a seat." I blinked. By the trash cans? Ryan, overhearing, grinned across the table and raised his glass. "Don't worry, Danny. Think of it as the VIP outdoor section." His fiancée giggled. A few cousins snickered. I wanted to disappear right there. But instead, I nodded stiffly, turned around, and walked back outside. The music grew muffled as the doors shut behind me. I sat down in the folding chair, placed the gift carefully at my feet, and stared out into the dark. That was how the night began. The night air was cooler than I expected, sharp against the back of my neck as I sat rigidly in that flimsy chair. From inside the hall came bursts of laughter, the clink of glasses, and the hum of a live band warming up. Every sound made me feel further away, like I wasn't just outside the reception but outside the family itself. I tried to distract myself by scrolling on my phone, but the screen blurred as my eyes burned. I wasn't angry yet, just numb. A part of me kept waiting for someone to come out, to say it was a mistake, to drag me inside where I belonged. But no one came. After a while, a waiter stepped out with a tray of drinks. He spotted me sitting alone and paused, confusion flickering across his face. "Sir, are you with the wedding party?" I forced a small smile. "Yeah. This is my seat, apparently." He hesitated like he didn't quite believe me, then carefully set a glass of water on the ground next to me. "Well, enjoy the evening," he muttered before slipping back inside. Not even a champagne flute, just water. I sat there, back stiff, watching through the glass doors as the toasts began. Ryan's best man, his college buddy, told a string of stories about their wild adventures, how Ryan was the life of the party, the guy everyone looked up to. People roared with laughter, raising their glasses high. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough to sting. When Ryan finally stood up to give his speech, he gestured grandly around the room. "Tonight, I'm surrounded by the people who matter most in my life. My family. My friends. My future." He paused, letting the applause wash over him. I sat frozen, my knuckles white against the edge of my chair. The people who matter most. And where was I? By the trash cans, invisible. Half an hour later, my cousin Melissa slipped outside for a smoke. She jumped a little when she saw me. "Oh my God, Danny. They actually sat you out here." "Apparently, I'm not close enough family for the main hall," I said, my voice flat. She exhaled a stream of smoke, shook her head, and muttered, "That's messed up. Ryan's always been a jerk, but this is next level." I shrugged, but my chest tightened. At least someone noticed. She patted my shoulder awkwardly before heading back in. The door shut, and once again I was alone. The band struck up a lively tune, and the laughter grew louder. Inside, people were eating, drinking, celebrating. Out here, I could smell stale beer dripping from the bins. By the time dessert rolled around, I was shivering in my chair, debating whether to just leave quietly and never speak to any of them again. But then the waiter returned, carrying the leather bill folder. "Excuse me, sir," he said softly. "You're the one who booked the event space, correct?" My head snapped up. "What?" "Yes," he said, checking the card on file. "The reservation was secured under your name. The total comes to $4,986. Would you like me to charge the same card for the final amount?" For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. Nearly $5,000. My card. And suddenly I understood, they hadn't just shoved me outside. They had used me to pay for the whole night. Inside the hall, Ryan raised his glass again, smirking when he saw the waiter standing by me with the bill. "Don't worry, everyone," he called out loudly, his voice carrying. "Danny's got this covered. He's always the dependable one." The room erupted in laughter. Glasses clinked. All eyes turned to me. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel numb anymore. I felt furious. The waiter held out the bill like it was radioactive, his eyes darting between me and the laughing crowd inside. I stared at the folder, then at Ryan's smug grin as he clinked glasses with his new bride. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from a pressure that had been building for years, finally ready to break. I stood slowly, brushing invisible dust from my suit jacket, and spoke just loud enough for the waiter to hear. "Not my table." The words hung in the air, heavier than the bass notes from the band. "Sir?" the waiter asked cautiously. I gestured toward the hall. "That table's for family only." I was told that pretty clearly tonight. The waiter blinked, caught between duty and disbelief. A few heads turned. My mother looked up, her smile frozen, a fork suspended halfway to her mouth. Ryan's laugh died in his throat. I stepped forward, my voice steady now, cutting through the chatter. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I wasn't even allowed a seat at the table. So I won't be paying. Silence spread like a ripple across the room. Even the band faltered, their instruments trailing into an awkward hush. Ryan's face flushed crimson. "Oh, come on, Danny. It was just a joke. Lighten up." A joke. My laugh was short, sharp, bitter. A joke is when you swap someone's name card. A joke is when you hide the dessert fork. But sitting me by the trash, using my card for your wedding, and then mocking me in front of everyone? That's not a joke. That's humiliation. Gasps rose around the tables. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Melissa, bless her, looked like she wanted to cheer. Ryan sneered, but his voice cracked under the weight of the silence. "You're overreacting. You always do." I turned to the bride, who was gripping her wine glass like it might shatter. "Did you know about this?" I asked quietly. She looked away, her cheeks pale. Then I glanced at Ryan's parents, my aunt and uncle, their faces a mix of shock and shame. "You let this happen," I said, my voice lower now, but cutting. "And you thought I'd just swallow it. Like I always do." The waiter still held the bill, his hand trembling slightly. I took a deep breath, nodded toward Ryan, and said firmly, "Give it to him. He's the groom. It's his night. Let him pay for it." The waiter hesitated only a second before stepping inside and placing the folder squarely in front of Ryan. The room went dead quiet, except for the sound of Ryan's jaw tightening. I picked up my gift from the floor, straightened my tie, and turned toward the door. For the first time in years, I felt taller than him. But as I reached the threshold, Ryan's voice cut through the silence. "You walk out that door, Danny," he snapped, his tone dripping with venom. "And you're not family anymore." I paused, my hand on the handle, my heart pounding. The choice was in front of me: stay and swallow the humiliation, or walk out and finally let go. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. My hand gripped the door handle, but I didn't push it open just yet. The weight of Ryan's words hung heavy in the silence. "You're not family anymore." I turned slowly, scanning the room. Dozens of eyes were locked on me, some wide with shock, others darting away in guilt. My mother's lips trembled like she wanted to say something but couldn't. My father sat stiffly, his glass of wine frozen in his hand. I took a step back into the hall, letting the door swing shut behind me. My voice, though quiet, carried across the room. "Not family anymore? Funny. Because sitting me outside by the trash cans was your way of saying the same thing, just without the words." A ripple of murmurs swept through the tables. A bridesmaid shifted uncomfortably. Brooke, Ryan's new wife, stared at me with wide, uncertain eyes, like she was realizing too late what kind of man she'd married. Ryan slammed his fist against the table, rattling the silverware. "You're making a scene," he barked. I tilted my head, meeting his glare. "No, Ryan. You made the scene the moment you decided humiliating me was entertainment." Melissa, bless her brave heart, spoke up from her seat. "He's right. This is disgusting, Ryan." That single voice cracked the room open. A cousin whispered, "I can't believe this." An uncle muttered something under his breath. Even the bride's father leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, unimpressed. Ryan's face went pale. He hadn't expected pushback. I set the gift bag gently on an empty chair near the door. I came here tonight hoping to celebrate you. To be included. To finally feel like I belonged. Instead, I was treated like garbage. Literally. I glanced toward the patio doors. And now you want to throw me out of the family for refusing to bankroll it? Fine. But let's be clear, family isn't about blood. It's about respect. And I haven't had any here in years. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was sharp, cutting. Ryan opened his mouth to snap back, but his bride's father suddenly raised his voice, startling everyone. You seated him outside, he asked, his tone cold, his gaze fixed on Ryan. Ryan stammered. It was just a joke. A joke, the man repeated, his voice booming now. On your own cousin? On the person who paid for this event. His face hardened. You have embarrassed my daughter tonight. The bride's cheeks flushed red. Her hands trembled as she set down her glass. Ryan, she whispered. Is that true? Ryan's jaw clenched, but the silence answered for him. I didn't wait for his excuses. I picked up my coat, slipped it on slowly, and let the hush stretch longer than it should have. Then I looked directly at my mother. Maybe you were right all along, I said softly. Maybe I was never really family. But at least now we're all being honest about it. With that, I turned back toward the door. This time, no one stopped me. But what I didn't know was that my exit had only lit the fuse, and the explosion was still coming. The moment the door shut behind me, the cool night air hit my face like a slap. I expected to feel relief, but instead there was this hollow ache, like something inside me had finally cracked. My footsteps echoed across the stone patio as I headed toward the parking lot. But I hadn't even reached my car before the shouting started. Voices spilled from the reception hall, sharp and frantic. A woman's voice, Brooks, rose above the rest. You humiliated him? In front of everyone. I froze. My chest tightened. I shouldn't have cared what came next, but I couldn't help it. For once, they weren't whispering about me behind closed doors, they were saying it out loud. Through the glass windows, I saw Ryan standing, his face red and twisted. It was a joke, he barked again, louder this time, though the confidence in his tone had vanished. Danny always overreacts. He's too sensitive. But Brooks' father wasn't having it. He shoved back his chair and pointed at Ryan across the table. Sensitive. That man sat alone by the trash while you laughed at him. And then you tried to stick him with the bill? Do you know how that looks? The entire room rippled with whispers. A few guests actually stood, muttering about leaving. One of the bridesmaids dropped her fork with a clatter. Ryan's mother, my aunt, tried to smooth things over, her voice honey-sweet and brittle. Please, let's not blow this out of proportion. But Brooke cut her off, her voice trembling with fury. Out of proportion? He's my husband, and he just showed me exactly who he is. The music had stopped completely now. The band members looked like they wanted to sink through the floor. Waiters lingered awkwardly at the edges, unsure whether to serve dessert or duck for cover. And me. I stood outside in the shadows, watching it unravel like a play written just for me. 4 years, I'd swallowed the slights, the jokes, the dismissals. Tonight, I hadn't even raised my voice, but finally, they were seeing Ryan the way I'd always seen him. The bride's father slammed the bill folder down in front of Ryan. You pay for this, he ordered. Every damn cent. And if you can't handle that responsibility, maybe you weren't ready for marriage in the first place. A few guests clapped softly. Not for me, not even really against Ryan, but for the truth being said out loud. Ryan's face contorted, caught between rage and humiliation. He looked around the room for support, for someone to laugh, to shrug it off. But no one did. Not even his parents. And that's when Brooke did something no one saw coming. She slipped off her wedding ring. The gasp that followed shook the entire hall. The clatter of the ring hitting the table cut through the silence sharper than any words. Brooke's hand trembled, but her voice was steady. If this is what marriage with you looks like, Ryan, then I made a mistake. Gasps rippled across the room. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." A bridesmaid's hand flew to her mouth. Even the band members leaned forward like they couldn't believe what they'd just seen. Ryan's face drained of color. "Brooke, baby, what are you doing? You can't be serious." She pushed the ring across the linen tablecloth toward him. "Serious? You humiliated your own cousin. You made him pay for your wedding. You turned tonight into a joke." Her voice cracked, but she didn't look away. "If you can treat family like that, what does that mean for me?" Ryan's mom jumped in, her voice sharp and scolding. "Brooke, don't overreact. This is just Danny being dramatic again." But Brooke snapped her head toward her, eyes blazing. Dramatic? He was sitting outside by the trash cans. She jabbed her finger toward the patio doors where I still stood frozen in the shadows. "And you all let it happen." The room buzzed with whispers, the kind that sting worse than shouts. Ryan's father buried his face in his hands. My parents stared at their plates, stone silent. And Brooke's father, well, he looked like he was ready to drag Ryan out by the collar. Ryan reached for Brooke's hand, desperation creeping into his voice. "Please, don't do this. It was supposed to be funny." Brooke yanked her hand back like his touch burned. "You think cruelty is funny. You think embarrassment is entertainment. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life being the next punchline." Her words hit him harder than any slap could have. For once, Ryan didn't have a smirk, or a comeback, or a cocky shrug. He just stood there, red-faced and small, while the crowd that once adored him now stared with disgust. I should have felt vindicated. I should have turned and walked away, satisfied that justice had finally been served. But instead, all I felt was hollow. Because for all the chaos inside, I was still outside. Watching. Forgotten. I stepped back into the night, my shoes crunching on the gravel path. The sound of voices rose behind me, angry and fractured, but I didn't look back. Not yet. But I knew, as I walked toward my car, that something had shifted forever, not just in Ryan's life, but in mine. And the storm inside that hall was only just beginning to tear the family apart. I had just reached my car when the door to the hall burst open. Voices spilled into the night, heated, frantic, impossible to ignore. I paused with my hand on the car door handle, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to drive away and never look back. But another part of me, the part that had been silenced for years, needed to hear what came next. Ryan stormed out first, his tie yanked loose, his face blotchy with rage. He spotted me instantly. "Are you happy now?" he shouted across the lot. "You ruined my wedding." I leaned against my car, arms folded, keeping my voice calm. "Funny, I thought you ruined it the moment you decided I belonged with the trash." His jaw worked furiously, but before he could spit another word, Brooke came out behind him, flanked by her parents. Her father's face was stone. Her mother's lips were pressed so tight they were nearly white. Brooke, though, looked broken, not angry, not furious anymore, just broken. She wouldn't even look at Ryan. Behind them, My own parents stepped into the night. My mother's expression was pinched, brittle with denial. My father stayed back, silent as ever, like a ghost in his own skin. "Danny," my mom said quickly, her voice shrill, "you need to apologize. Now. This has gone far enough." I almost laughed. Apologize? For what? For refusing to pay for a party I wasn't even allowed to sit at? For being treated like dirt and finally saying something? She stiffened. "You're making this about you when it's Ryan's big day." Brooke's father cut in, his voice booming. "No, ma'am. Your son made it about him when he humiliated this man in front of everyone." He jabbed a finger toward Ryan, who looked like he might explode. Ryan lunged forward, pointing at me. "You've been jealous your whole life. Admit it. That's why you're doing this." I straightened, meeting his glare. My voice came out steady, stronger than I felt. "Jealous? No. Ryan. I was tired. Tired of being laughed at. Tired of being treated like I don't belong. You think I wanted to sit outside while you toasted the people who matter most? No. I just wanted to be part of the family." For a moment, the night went still. Even Ryan seemed stunned into silence. Then Brooke whispered, barely audible, "And you couldn't even give him that." Her words shattered him. Ryan turned, eyes wide, but Brooke was already walking back inside with her parents. The door shut behind them, leaving him alone with us. He looked at me, breathing hard, fists clenched. For the first time in my life, he looked small. And I realized I wasn't the one on the outside anymore. He was. Ryan stood frozen in the parking lot, chest heaving like a cornered animal. His eyes darted from me to my parents, as if waiting for them to step in, to defend him like they always had. But for the first time, they didn't. My father shifted uncomfortably, staring at the gravel beneath his shoes. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again, her throat bobbing as if the words had betrayed her. The silence stretched, thick and damning. "Say something," Ryan snapped, his voice cracking. "Tell him he's being dramatic. Tell him he's jealous." But no one did. I took a slow breath, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "It's not jealousy, Ryan. It's exhaustion. I've spent my whole life being the punchline while you got applause. Tonight just made it official. I don't belong at your table. And maybe I never did." Ryan's face twisted, desperate now. "You think you're better than me? You think walking out makes you some kind of hero?" I shook my head. "No. It just makes me free." A murmur carried from the doorway. More guests had followed outside, drawn by the spectacle. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who had chuckled along with Ryan's jokes for years, now stood in an uneasy semicircle, watching him unravel. Melissa stepped forward, arms crossed. "He's right," she said firmly. "Danny's put up with your crap forever, and we all let it happen. Tonight just showed everyone who you really are." Ryan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. For once, he didn't have a quick jab, a clever deflection. He just stood there, surrounded, exposed. And then Brooke's father delivered the final blow. "Son," he said coldly, "you better get used to paying your own bills. Because after tonight, you're on your own." The crowd buzzed, sharp whispers cutting like knives. Ryan staggered back a step, as if the ground itself had shifted under him. And me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. But as I looked around at the faces of my family, guilt twisted in my chest. Because being seen now meant exposing all of them, their silence, their complicity, their years of looking the other way. I'd ripped the mask off Ryan. But I wasn't sure if I had the strength to face what came next. The night had turned electric, every breath heavy with things unsaid. Ryan stood there, small and furious, surrounded by silence that no one rushed to break. For once, he wasn't the golden boy. He was just a man stripped bare in front of everyone who used to clap for him. I should have felt triumphant. But as I looked at my parents, my chest tightened. My mother's lips were pressed into a thin line, her eyes glistening with something between shame and stubbornness. My father avoided my gaze, staring into the dark like maybe he could pretend none of this was happening. I swallowed hard. "You all let this happen," I said quietly, my voice carrying in the still night. "Year after year, you laughed while he tore me down. You called it jokes. You called it teasing. But tonight showed the truth. It was cruelty. And you let it stand." A ripple moved through the crowd. An uncle coughed awkwardly. An aunt looked down at her shoes. No one defended themselves. No one said I was wrong. Ryan spat at the ground, his voice cracking. "You're pathetic, Danny. You'll always be pathetic." I didn't flinch this time. I met his glare with something I hadn't felt in years. Certainty. Maybe. But at least I'm not a liar. At least I'm not a coward who hides behind a family too scared to call him out. Melissa stepped forward again, her chin high. "Danny's right. And you know it." Ryan's mouth snapped shut, his face twisting, but no sound came out. The door to the hall creaked open again, and Brooke appeared in the doorway. Her wedding dress shimmered under the outdoor lights, but her expression was cold, resolute. She looked at Ryan for a long moment, then at me. Her voice was soft but firm. "Go, Danny. You don't owe anyone here another second." I exhaled slowly, the tension leaving my shoulders like smoke. She was right. I didn't owe them. Not Ryan. Not even my parents. For the first time, walking away didn't feel like defeat. It felt like freedom. I opened my car door, slid inside, and started the engine. The headlights cut across the gravel, washing the crowd in pale light. For a second, no one moved. Just frozen faces, watching me go. Then I pulled out of the lot, leaving the music, the lights, and the trash cans behind. But as the road stretched ahead of me, one thought lingered. Maybe tonight wasn't the end of my place in the family. Maybe it was just the beginning of finally living on my own terms. The highway was empty, the world outside my windshield blurring into streaks of gold and shadow. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than I realized, the adrenaline still running hot through my veins. I'd walked away, but what did that even mean? For years, I'd told myself that family was family, no matter how badly they treated me. Blood is thicker than water, right? That's what they always said. But tonight proved something else. Blood doesn't mean belonging. Respect does. And I had finally stopped begging for scraps of it. I pulled into a quiet rest stop, killed the engine, and just sat there in the silence. The night was cool, the air heavy with the faint smell of pine. My reflection stared back at me from the dark glass, tired eyes, a jaw set with something close to peace. I thought about Ryan, about the way his smirk crumbled when no one laughed. I thought about my mother, clutching her wine glass like it was a lifeline. About Brooke, sliding off her ring, making a choice right there in front of everyone. That wedding hadn't just been about them, it had been about all of us. Years of silence, years of pretending, all shattering in one night. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text. "Melissa, I'm proud of you. Finally." I smiled, small but real. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel invisible. As the night deepened, I realized something important. Walking away didn't mean I had no family. It meant I had no illusions left. And maybe that was better. Cleaner. More honest. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting to stay at the table. It's standing up, walking away, and choosing not to sit by the trash anymore. I started the car again, the road stretching out before me like a blank page. And for the first time, I felt ready to write my own story.